or start off our meeting here this morning. We've got a little icebreaker, so you can access Mentimeter two different ways. You can scan the QR code on the right with your cell phone, or you can go to menti.com and enter the code 26847155. And then we'll get started with our meeting. All right, the first question is, what are your family's 4th of July traditions? You can type in. Some of the responses are going to the Lake of the Ozarks, nice family cookout, going to the beach, making homemade ice cream and watching fireworks, lake weekend, pool time, and homemade ice cream. Nice. Got some similar traditions. The next one is, what is your favorite summer food? And you have a couple options. So if you have more than just one, you can enter those. Tomatoes, corn on the cob, ooh, strawberry pie, ribs, peach mango salsa, anything grilled, crabs, corn on the cob, another person, anything on the grill, blackberries, yeah, yum, all that sounds really good and refreshing and light, and things right out of your garden perhaps, or a farmer's market or a farm nearby. The next poll we have is, what is the best trip or thing you did during the summer as a child? Yep, going to camps, absolutely. Disney World, ooh, nice. Going to Adventureland. Summer vacations to the beach with grandma. Oh, that's a nice memory. Disney World, jealous. Never got to do that. Great, thanks everybody for participating. We are going to go ahead and get started with our agenda today. We have a agenda that we definitely would encourage interaction here today. We want to leave our meeting today being able to present some implementation projects to the larger core group of the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan. And so we have invited one of the applicants. So Dr. Jamisha Wade is here from Start at Zero. And this is a great time here today that we can, as a group, review the application and give any feedback on how to on how the application can further our strategies. And for those of you that maybe are new, just want to give you guys a little bit of an overview of just how the process works. So we are one of many sectors that are in the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan. And so each sector has been allotted $12,500 for implementation projects. And that would be advancing our 4 strategies that we have identified. And so our job as a smaller working group is that we want to make sure that we have a strong implementation project to put forth in front of the core sector group. Some tips just to kind of remind you is that many of those that are in the other core sector groups may not be familiar with early childhood services or programming. And so we want to always make sure that all of our implementation projects, when they go before the core group, that's a person that is sharing, whether it's myself, Natalie, or Shelly, that we have all the information to make sure that we have a really strong implementation project and that it can be scored highly. We want to make sure that it meets the scoring threshold. And so there are different factors that the core group does look at, and they vote to make sure that this project can be funded. So the first thing that we are going to do today is we are going to review the Start at Zero implementation project. Emily, do you want to thank you? Not Emily, sorry, Natalie. Do you want to bring that up for everybody? That would be great. And I just ask that for all of those that are here today, if we could, if we have any questions or anything, if you want to raise your hand. Again, we're very interested in this project, in the work that Start at Zero does, and feel strongly that this implementation project can further along our strategies and tactics that we've identified in the KCPA plan. And so we just want to make sure that we've got the strongest application to take back to the core working group. I also did want to share with the group that the core working group met this week, and we did agree that we would do rolling applications, not quarterly anymore. So we're really excited about that. Because that won't hold back any projects or kind of put them on hold. And so as implementation project applications come in across all sectors, those will be presented to the larger group to be able to vote on. Great. And we've got the application in front of you, and we're just going to kind of walk through each one of the questions. And again, if you have any questions or clarification or suggestions for Dr. Wade, or an opportunity for Dr. Wade to explain something further, please let us know. And this helps me because that kind of gives me a little bit of practice if I was presenting to the core working group. So the first question of this application is just to give 3 to 5 sentences of the proposed project. In the proposed project, what I would present to the group back is that through already existing programs like Parent Cafe and Group Connections, which the applicant has given a description of that, they would be advancing physical activity through these 2 identified programs that they already are implementing. They are, what do I want to say? They are integrating more of a holistic approach through the Group Connections. And so this would expand the current offering of both Parent Cafe and Group Connections. I think in this particular area, sorry, I'm kind of scanning this a little bit. Thank you, Chris, for reminding us of that. Yes, we have, oh gosh, what did you just say? We have changed from parent to family. That is something that kind of in the early childhood sector through a lot of the work we've kind of identified family versus parent, because we know all adults that are caregivers are not always the parent, but they are definitely a part of the family. So just some lingo there, should I say. So in this particular sector, we want to make sure that we have 3 to 5 sentences of describing the proposed project. So we've got a good description of what the parent cafe and group connection is. One of the suggestions that I would have, particularly if I was coming back to the larger group, is the how. A little bit more of the described proposal, and maybe it's down a little bit further, but we could move it up to this particular area. Does anybody else have any questions just through this section to be able to describe the proposed project?
I was going to say, I appreciate the use of family instead of parent. Parent Cafe is a national model, so like you can't necessarily change the language for things like that. So would the suggestion or recommendation be to, and when I've done this in other proposals, parent, and kind of have like a footer that says this is what parent means, and then say like this is an evidence-based model that we're using, so we can't just switch language. So maybe just that uplifting that for the good of the group as well.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Absolutely, yes. And thank you for sharing that. Yes, if it's a evidence-based program, we cannot do any of the changing. So that's a good point for sure. I think in this particular area, and can you scroll down, Natalie, just a little bit? I think if we could, I think there's some information down a little bit further in this area. If we could put more of the meat of describing what the project is going to do. And I think maybe it's just moving it to a different location of the application. Let's see here. Maybe I'm missing it somewhere. And move it over to my big screen here.
Sorry, say that again. I was trying to make some notes. Say that part again. What are you looking for?
So in this first sector, a more thorough description of the proposed project. So I'm seeing the description of the parent cafe. I guess I'm looking for being able to feel confident to go back to the big group and say what exactly the project is doing.
Yeah, that is later on in a section, but I agree with you moving it up front. A lot of people don't know about parent cafe and group, so maybe that's a separate thing we can upload and not have it be so heavy here. We can upload that in a separate document and keep this more concise. Have a great Destiny's an amazing writer, but we can.
Yes, I agree. I agree. Yes, yes, because you've provided beautiful information here and important information about just the work that you do. But yeah, I do like how you have the definitions here of parent cafe and group connections. And I think for the reader, because we send this out before the meeting, they would be able to get a good description. But if we could, move up the content that describes the proposed project would be great. Dr. Wade, do you just want to give the group here? I know we have a small but mighty group. Do you want to give just, a few sentences of what you're trying to do?
So just at a high level, I mean, all the information is in here that gives you more details, but at a higher level, and I have personal stories of this. We actually did an event at Lakeside Nature Center. We went to Mother Nature Reads, and we didn't have a great turnout because the issue is, what am I supposed to expect when I come outdoors? And so a lot of Black and brown families they go outside to some parks, not all parks. And every time I go to a park, all the trash cans are full and there's needles in some parks and there's people sleeping in some parks. I personally know how to navigate that, but when people have small children, they're not trying to do all of that. So we've had to go earlier to parks to do cleanup so that they can be ready for our family. So because of that, we don't go to parks often because it just takes more resources and time. We're building our volunteer base as well. So part of it is just cleanliness and readiness of parks for families. So if we want to do more of that, then we need a little bit more resources so that we can navigate making sure the parks are clean for our families. The other part is there's usually some discrimination that I experience when I'm outdoors. So I have a family of 5. I have 5 children, and my husband and I have 5 children. And so we had an event at the Lakeside Nature Center. And I've since talked to some people that work there. So that's why I'm mentioning their name, and because we want to work with the sector. We were there, and we didn't have a lot of families there. So I was approached by one of their employees and said that I was a nonprofit leader and we were here. And she's like, "Oh, it's so nice of you to bring out foster families and support them and, introduce them to the Lakeside Nature Center." There were no foster families involved. All the children mentioned were my children. So what made her assume that these were foster families, nonprofit, and were Black? And so because of that, I get a little emotional about it. Because of that, people are not participating in these different events, especially the more nature focused events where I know they have pollinators, they have like walk with the naturalist and all these different things that we want to have access to. And so if we're able to do that in a group, then people will feel more comfortable. I'd be able to troubleshoot, and my team would be able to troubleshoot any racism that comes about at the settings that we enter, because it happens so much that I can name just myself so many things that my family has experienced, and trauma to my children who are otherwise, in a safe and warm home, but they experience racism when we're outdoors in nature. So we want to, this is more of, so all of this is not written here. I can definitely write it there, but I didn't want to point any fingers or anything like that. And the third thing I'll say, so besides cleanliness, and then dealing with episodes of racism, and then also gosh, I just lost my last one. It might come back to me. We also transport families. That's not what I wanted to say, but we do transport families as well. So we have license and insurance to be able to transport families. And so that's something that's really important to getting them engaged in the outdoors as well.
You bet, breaking
We
down
want
that
to
barrier.
normalize it. Yeah, I want to normalize it. And that's why for this project, we incorporate it into things that we're already doing. So they expect at Parent Cafe that we'll be talking about self-care and community care and how we do that. And so it wouldn't be a surprise for us to introduce more. And we actually just did this. So we've been piloting and trying out some things and seeing how they land. And so we did a Zen kind of yoga Parent Cafe, and it was a hit. And then we had from that, our instructors are not trained in early childhood. So that's what it is. There's other organizations like Greenworks, love them. They don't do early childhood. And so we're having a problem with, hey, it's family friendly, but it's not early childhood friendly. So when I bring my 2-year-old, that's a whole hot mess because they're not equipped and set up and have enough support to help a family, especially a larger family, which would happen a lot of times when my children were 5 under 5. I wouldn't come to things because there was nobody to help me, manage and support. And so we try to get more volunteers, more people that have graduated from our programs to come along with us and then help us be there with families, because it is it is really hard and it's a different beast. And so we wanted to use the existing programs to just expand them a little bit more.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much for sharing just your own personal story, as well as already lessons learned as you guys are implementing and trying out, this project embedded within your Parent Cafe and your group connection. So thank you for sharing. I think that gives us some good context, and as well as just things that you're learning that we probably don't think of when, oh yeah, we're just all going to go out to the park, but not thinking about, is it safe? And the cleanup that's needed before families are even welcome to come. So thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things in the project that we really like, there's many things, but one of the highlights of this is that, this is already an existing program. So parents are coming to this. And that we would, through this project, we would be able to do a pre and a post of not only seeing how exposing families to Parks and Rec and outdoor activities. We were wondering, just something that we were kind of brainstorming, and you may have already already thought of this, Jamisha, is in the survey to the families, did you guys, have you talked about like maybe getting the families' feedback on when they think of Parks and Rec or parks, like what comes to their mind? And of course, I don't have in front of me like questions that I'm prepared for, but maybe just coming up with like 5 questions on like, when you hear Parks and Rec, what do you think? Or when you go to the park, what do you do? And I would be curious to see if that would change their perception and also their knowledge of what they can do through Parks and Rec or through parks. And if that would change, because then that would give informed information back to Parks and Rec. And that's kind of tying back to the strategies that you identified for the Parks and Rec.
Yeah, I do think we can ask those questions. One of the benefits of being a home visiting program is that we do ask those, and we can have a more formal survey, of course, but being a home visitor, and I have been a home visitor myself for 3 years, I would say, hey, let's go to the park. And they're like, no, not that park. So we already know some of those things. And then also the benefit is that I am in the community, I'm in 64130. And so I see daily what the parks look like. And, you know, we've had to leave parks because people are making rounds and stopping and dropping and those things. And so we leave. So I know those things. We can, of course, do a survey so that the information is more formalized, but just want to make sure we're not creating, and I know that there's a park survey out now with the KC Parks and Rec Health, the commissioners. Stephen E. Smith was, you know, one of our founding board members. So I know that there's some surveys out now. So maybe the move is helping our families, sending that link to our families so that also access the surveys.
Yep. Chris, do you have a question or comment?
But
I'm sorry, I missed the last meeting, and so maybe you covered some of this, but is this program in Kansas and Missouri, or is it just specific counties?
Right now we do screenings metro-wide, but our home visiting is for Jackson County only. So all of the programs that we mentioned are open to the public. We don't have a big presence in Kansas, but that's our next move for 2024. We hope to expand.
Okay. My other question is, it kind of goes with what you were just saying with the survey. When you first started talking, I wonder, you know, with the survey Rhonda was talking about, if there were identified parks that people do tend to go to, and it sounds like there definitely are. And to me, Park and Rec, or whatever it's called on the Missouri side, should address the issues that are limiting or prohibiting families from going to those parks. And it may be, like you had said, the needles, the trash, the overflowing, you know, receptacles, but to me, that always needs to be addressed by a Park and Rec location. That's definitely. And then it kind of, it saddens me that that people don't want to get outside, or like you said, the experience you had at parks, and you know that we want to normalize getting people outside and getting them active. And it's kind of a sad statement for society, I guess, to mine, is that people are not feeling welcomed outdoors in any capacity, or at least in the park capacity. So anyway.
Yep. Thank you, Chris, for asking those questions and comments. That's helpful. Let's scroll down here just a little bit. So I think what would be helpful for me presenting is if we can move the description of what you have, talking about the protective factors and the survey that you'll do with the families. Is there a particular protective factor that you are highlighting, or would it be all 6, Jamisha?
So we usually do 5, because I think 6, there's not an official survey. I think the 6th one is like belonging or attachment or something now. And I don't know if the researchers, this is how things trickle down, have done an official survey for all 6 protective factors. So we do use a parent assessment of protective factors.
Okay.
So it measures, I believe, and then we just kind of get the PFI. So we just have an index score.
And so you guys were going to do that at the beginning?
So we, yes. Yes, you can do that at the beginning. I think, what do we say here? I have it here. There, I think for that PAPF, we were wanting those that, because there's a more intensity of families that are doing home visiting. So you can see those changes with the families that are doing home visiting. If we have somebody which is open to the public, they just come one time, we would want to have kind of separate numbers, because it's like, well,
Yes,
you're not going to have a post if they only come one time, but we don't want to have it only be for the families that are in home visiting.
correct.
So, did that answer it?
Yep. How many families do you guys have right now in
About
your
85. About
five?
85 in-home visiting, about 85
85?
home visiting, and about 180 that are doing developmental screenings and kind of in and out. So we have a developmental screenings group, and so they just do screenings every 4 to 6 months, and they attend groups as desired.
Yep. And are you guys using ages and stages still?
Yep, and we do the dial 4 as well.
Oh, the dial 4. Okay.
Mhm.
I was going to ask Jamisha, do you think that within the group connections and the parent cafe, since your families are already doing the ages and stages, could we pull those 6 questions for gross motor and look at pre and post?
We could do that.
I was just wondering how we could tie that back. So, how the work that you're doing could be duplicated in the future with early childhood programs, other parent cafe programs that are in other technical assistance programs, and just wondering, how getting families out to Parks and Rec, being outside, being more active, having intentional activities to do, we could show that growth of gross motor.
As a data scientist, it doesn't necessarily work like that. But we could, that's because you got to have a control group and things like that. You don't want to just say, well, they participated and they just, it was better. So I will consider that. I will consider how we include that.
Great. The other question that I had for you as well. So one of the strategies, if you could scroll up a little bit, Natalie. Strategy 7 that you identified, discuss physical activity with families as part of existing family health assessments or goal setting. Is that something that you already do with your families through your curriculum?
Do we already set goals with them? Yes. The goals are pretty agnostic, whatever goal a family they might say they want to move into a new house or get the baby off the binky. So it's not a requirement that they do a physical goal, but we have the way the system is set up, you can include the physical activity goals. And so with this project, we want to say, in addition to whatever other goals you set with the family, we need to have a physical activity goal in there as well.
Excellent. Okay, great. The other thing on here, upon reviewing, I think for the Parks and Recs, the strategies, I think it would be a hard sell to do strategy 11, priority 3. Again, referencing back to what you are proposing to do through the parent cafe and the group connections, and also strategy 12, because it talks about innovative tools.
Yeah, I do think maybe the strategy 12 priority 1 is a stretch, but strategy 11 priority 3 is not a stretch because we're already doing that. So we're working with some master pollinators and naturalists, and that they're coming in, they're bringing pollinators. I have some back here that I got that I need to plant. They're talking about how to have indoor plants. So we're already doing that part of it, but I agree with you that the priority strategy 12 priority 1 could be a stretch.
Okay. Let me see what else there was that I had here. Parent cafe. Yeah, I think what's helpful too is any of the strategies that you've identified between Parks and Rec and early childhood. If Shelley had a question here. Are the environmentalists planting in parks?
No, because you're not allowed to do that unless you have special permission. So the goal would be for families to begin to plant things or be a part of these pollinator, what they have like Lathe, they have like a festival or like a, what do you call it? Event. I'll just say event. They have different events that are available to families that we don't share because we know people are not going. And so now we're like, okay, let's introduce some of these things. Let's share on social media. Let's share brochures. And so and it takes, what I always think capacity building is like a year. No, it's like a 3-year process.
Yeah, always takes longer than what we
Unfortunately,
think.
it definitely takes longer. And so right now, I feel like this is a phase 1 of just forcing ourselves to get folks out there. And honestly, my team, they have to have training so that they know what's best or how to share this information with families.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Sure.
Let's see what else.
Okay, I see Shelley was saying.
Let's go, let's scroll down here a little bit to next steps. You could do that, Natalie. Sorry, will you go up to number 4, question number 4? I think for question number 4, if we could identify more clear what Parks and Rec are going to do in this collaboration, I think would be helpful. All of this information is good, but I think when it comes to the core group, they just want to know what other sectors are going to be involved in this project, and for me to be able to explain what they are going to do.
And this is Shelley, I'm going to jump in for just a second. So as the core work group has reviewed other implementation projects, what helps this section be successful is identifying what partnerships are already in place and how those might be built upon. And I think it's a 3rd paragraph down where you talk about, let's see, is that the right one? Where you're mentioning KC Parks and Rec and Lakeside Nature Center. If those are partnerships that are already in place, like you're already working with so-and-so from Parks and Rec, and Lakeside Nature Center has a confirmed agreement with you and are helping you expand this, those specifics are really helpful for the rest of the group to see that this is already cross-sector. Or if your goal is to begin those partnerships, that does align with the multi-level, so the organization and coalition building, but that needs to be called out as well, if that makes sense, so that anyone who's not familiar with either the early childhood sector or Start at Zero can clearly understand from your application, here's what we already have in place and here's where we're going. So as I've reviewed this, I think, and after listening to you talk in the past I think we had a couple of meetings at least, I really think your project aligns nicely with the strategies and tactics of the early childhood sector. In our experience in reviewing this with other people of the core, and not necessarily the whole core work group, but other members of the core work group, they're not as clear because they haven't had a chance to actually meet you and hear you describe it. And all they have right now is this application. And so I think if those things are a little bit more clear in there, it easily helps the rest of the people who aren't familiar and haven't been here understand, okay, here's where you are. Here's what you already have in place. Here's your plan for moving forward. And then here's what's going to tell us whether or not this is successful and how we're going to move forward after this project is over, whether it's continuing to embed physical activity opportunities within home visiting, however you're going to do that, or other ideas that you have. I mean, I've heard you describe a lot of really fantastic ideas, and making sure that that's clear in the next steps for anyone else to see is really super helpful. And the difference between this application, so I think I heard you say it earlier, your writer is really good at writing. She really is. She's writing this though, as if it's a formal grant application.
Mhm.
And this is a little, I hate to say this if we're being recorded, but it's a little less rigorous.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of excellent detail she has in there, but it may not quite be what the rest of the group is looking for in terms of next steps, if that makes sense.
Yep, no, that's great. That's great feedback.
Thank you, Shelley. Yes, I would agree in this instance, less is more, in the sense that if it can be precise and then I can articulate it, then we would be able to fully make sure that everybody that is reviewing this in the core working group feels confident that they understand how this is going to further the strategies and tactics. So for some of the, yeah, so I would say for some of this, you could probably omit some of this.
Yeah, I already started making
Okay.
about
Okay, yeah.
I need this.
Again, like Shelley was saying, it's all wonderful writing and important information. But for this purpose of the implementation project, some of it won't be needed to do the presentation. Now, my question would be, Shelley, if Start at Zero was asking for, let's say, 5,000 from our group, would she also write in here that 5,000 from Parks and Rec? Or is that separate?
I mean, in my opinion, I think you could use the same application for both groups.
Okay.
And I think you could be clear. I mean, the truth is you can ask for, whatever what generally happens with the sectors is the sector leads often know what other applications might be coming forward. And I have not yet seen a sector allocate their full funding to one project. No, I take that back. That's not true. I've only seen that in one case, and that's the mass media, who is actually working on creating a media campaign related to physical activity. They are allocating all of their funding to working with a communication group to develop the communication plan, strategies, messaging, all of that. But in other cases, I haven't seen them allocate full funding to one implementation project. So I only say that for informational purposes.
Yep.
I think
Go ahead.
the only other thing I would kind of add, just I don't know if it's just feedback for you all, but sometimes the existing programming is like not what people actually want to participate in. And so that means that we may have our own yoga. There may be yoga at KC Parks and Rec, but the yoga isn't what the families need, or they're not trained in early childhood or family style yoga. And so we would prefer to bring our own person. And so that is kind of a threat to what partnership could look like. And so longer term, you could say, after you have proof that, hey, families are actually attending this, can we bring this to the Southeast Community Center or something like that? Because there's been several things that yoga's at 6 a.m. I can't even go to that, even if I wanted to. So how you give that feedback, and I often feel that the community doesn't feel as empowered to even say that. And so we just don't attend. But there's all these like reasons why we don't attend that don't get explained. And I don't have capacity to create a survey that says, here's why we actually aren't showing up to some of the things.
Yep. For section 5, it's what would be the next steps. And so in this particular area, I think that one of the questions that I had is, Jamisha, how could the work that you're doing to increase physical activity and family engagement in that area, how can that be expanded further into the early childhood sector? So I was kind of thinking along the lines of, could you present or could you share with other early childhood programs like, hey, this is what we did. I'm thinking of Head Start and Early Head Start, where they have their required monthly meetings with parents that they have. They have the parent advisory board as well. Could it be that you could offer an online, informational meeting and expand that out through our sector? So, that could be through the Family Conservancy, that could be through Child Care Aware of Kansas and Missouri, for child care professionals, so that they could learn the work that you have done and what lessons you have learned. So kind of thinking like, how can what you've learned be duplicated into other early childhood programs?
Yep. No, we actually are already doing that. So yeah, we just presented at a conference and that was our first time doing that. And so we said, we got to bring this back to the city. So let's do a lunch and learn. So we're going to start doing more of that because we believe in the value and innovation of our work. So connecting that to this as well. And then I think one of the things that we realize is sometimes the early childhood sector, we're not thinking about it. But the other part is, sorry, I need some water. I always, when I can't think anymore, I'm like, I need water. I didn't remember my water bottle outside. But the other part of that is the other places need to be more inclusive of early childhood participants. So that's kind of what I was saying earlier. So like, if I go to the Head Start with this, they're like, yeah, boom, we'll do that tomorrow, starting tomorrow after nap time, but then when I go to church or something and I go to a picnic or whatever, then it's not conducive to the early childhood sector and us bringing our kids and feeling welcome. So I think our work is on both ends of that. So I would love to present about it in both multiple like areas.
Yeah, I think that's great. So if you could kind of insert a little bit of that, and when you list the different organizations here, I think something that comes to mind, these are definitely confirmed community partners with Park and Rec sectors. I'm not sure what their role is. So you have confirmed partnership, but what is the confirmed partnership that they will work together with expanding access to parks, or just not clear on that?
Okay.
So whether you keep that in, or you could just focus on your next step is, lessons learned, that you will offer a lunch and learn for, early care and education professionals, as well as other settings where early childhood, like you were saying, church, you've got Sunday school, you've got church programs, camp programs, where, could be libraries, where young children are.
Yeah, love it.
Does anybody else have any feedback or questions to continue to build off of this application?
Oh, sorry, my camera's not on. Good morning, everyone. I was just typing into the chat and thought I'm going to just say this instead. Jamisha, I love how you just explained how you plan to bring the work back. So your lessons learned. You've already had an opportunity to share this at a conference, you said. I think those things are really important to include in the next steps. And it can be a sentence. It doesn't have to be a huge description. You can just say, we've already started to bring the lessons back by doing this. You went to the conference. We plan to bring that back to Kansas City to share with others as well. In fact, through the early childhood sector, we can have you present again. We could have you present at one of our quarterly meetings to talk about how in the early childhood sector, partnering with Parks and Rec, we had this cross-sector park project, and these are the lessons learned, and this is what the early childhood sector can learn. Here's how home visiting programs can scale this. Here's what the Park and Rec sector can learn, using examples that you shared at the very beginning. And like park cleanliness is an issue. And you're 100% right. So I've been involved in evaluating parks for 15 years in Kansas City, and this was a problem 15 years ago. And they've done some work to improve it, but it seems to be a vicious cycle. In fact, at the Children's Mercy Community Garden, we run into the exact same things you're talking about, and that's private property. Although it's, there's no fencing, but I find needles in there. I find clothes hanging on our vegetables. I find people living right down the hill from where we are. So you're 100% right. And I think including some next steps like that, very simple,
Mhm.
what you've done, what you plan to do, and that the early childhood sector and the PA plan would be a great forum to share that information, would really help connect the entire project to the overall vision of the PA plan.
Yeah. Thank you, Shelley. Any other questions or feedback?
Sorry, one more thing. And
Yeah.
Jamisha, this is on us. So I'll just apologize on behalf of us, my team, me. We did not send you an updated application that includes a separate budget question in there. Now, you already have the budget information in there. It's not like you need to recreate that. But we're going to send you that updated application so that you can pull that piece out and put it in the budget part. That makes it easier for the group as they're reviewing the information. So I just noticed this. Actually, Natalie brought it to my attention, so I appreciate her doing that. But I put a comment in the chat box about the budget information and moving it to the budget section, and she's like, well, her application doesn't have that. So sorry about that. We'll give you that application and have you just sort of rearrange it in there. It
Yeah.
makes it easier to review. You're on mute.
Yeah, the thing pops up like, duh, you're muted. When do you all need the application back?
We, as Rhonda shared earlier, we are now reviewing these as they come in, which I think is
Okay.
a huge benefit. So we need it, and I don't have my calendar in front of me. Sorry, my phone's charging in another room. It will be 1 week. It'll be the second Tuesday of July.
Okay, second Tuesday. Perfect.
Yep, the 11th. Is that right?
Is that what it is? That sounds about right.
Second Tuesday?
Second
No, it's the 18th.
That's the second Tuesday?
Probably third.
KCPA Plan Core Work Group. That's what I
Yes.
have on my calendar.
Yes, but we need the application a week before that.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Got it.
Thanks everybody for your feedback, and thank you, Jamisha, for coming today. You are welcome to stay on. We're going to review another application. So you are welcome to do that, but we're really excited about being able to present this implementation project to the bigger group and see how the work that you are doing with families can, again, just advance the work that we've identified for the early childhood sector strategies and tactics. So thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, and thank you all for allowing me to resubmit and get the feedback is great, because a lot of times with Start at Zero, we're already doing so many things. We just don't put them all down, but it can be as simple as one sentence. So thank you for that reminder. And thank you for not being like other funders where they do want all of this and some. So
The balance, isn't it?
Then I also would love to keep coming to these meetings, but I guess I should have asked about, I thought maybe there's conflict of interest or something, because that's the thing sometimes. So it's on my calendar every month and I don't come because I'm like, we have an application in. I don't know if this is a conflict. So forgive me for not attending. And thanks for just always been allies in the early childhood work, because we got very few of us. So we appreciate it.
You bet.
Yes,
And
Dr.
yes, you are always welcome to come to our monthly meeting. We would love to have you, or if you're not able to come, somebody else in your place from Start at Zero would be great as well.
Yeah, and Dr. Wade, we really believe in transparency here. And so that's why we want to invite you to attend. We want you to hear the feedback. We don't want this to be a we don't want people, well, let me just stop there. We want this to be a transparent process. And I also want you to keep in mind, one of the reasons we keep sending it back to you for resubmission is because as a sector, we do agree that this aligns nicely with the with the overall plan. We want to help ensure that the application rises to the level or the threshold of funding. And so we are really appreciative that you continue to work to update it and send it back to us.
Not a problem. Thank you.
Great
And I
to
have a
see.
10 o'clock, so I'll be jumping off, but I appreciate you inviting me to stay.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you so much. And please reach out if you have any other questions.
Will do. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Natalie, do you want to pull up the next implementation project application? So the next one group that we are going to review is going to be the survey project that would go out to the early care and education professionals regarding resources. Natalie, do you want to go through this one or do you want me to?
I can go ahead and give you a break.
Thanks.
So I think a lot of you have been at our meetings where we've been reviewing this, so it should be familiar to you. But our resource group has been working on the survey for a while now. And we've assembled resources and been developing this REDCap survey, and we're getting ready to be sending it out to some of those early care professionals to review our resources and give us some feedback on where they would like to see those resources housed. And also if we're missing something, so give us some feedback on what they think they could use more of.
Natalie, I'd really, since the four of us have looked at this several times, Rich, I'd be really interested to see what kind of perspective you have as not an outsider, but you haven't been as deep, like Natalie said, within some of that subcommittee work. So well, I'd like to hear what you say as we move through this.
Yeah, this I highlighted because we haven't really set or agreed on how much we're going to ask for or how many incentives we're going to provide. That budget question's at the bottom, so we'll review that then. We've gone back and forth with these strategies and tactics, but we've kind of narrowed it down to these two. And we put notes explaining why we have picked them. Like this one, we're specifically in the compiling the resource page that it mentions in the tactic up here. And this one, we think it aligns more with our next steps after we get the surveys back. Example might be like providing more professional development opportunities based on what they say their needs are or what they would like more of. This one's pretty straightforward. We're doing this to help improve knowledge, skill development, improve self-efficacy related on the individual level. And then for organizing and advocacy, we've kind of built this coalition between both states that are meeting to organize these resources and put them out together. And then as far as policy, we're hoping an outcome after we're making these resources available, it allows more early care professionals. I'm just seeing a mistake right here. To adapt and create policy environment that facilitates more physical activity promotions within their settings. And also helps identify these resources to increase participation in already funded technical assistance programs. So funding is already available to help these groups try to adopt best practices for promoting physical activity. This is, I guess, maybe a weakness of ours, is it's obviously just early childhood sector, so it wouldn't be cross-sectional, but we think we'll score high enough in the other sections that we should reach that scoring threshold. And then at the bottom, we tried to clearly just bullet point what the next steps are to make it easy for the core work group that's maybe not as educated on some of this early childhood lingo that's used in it. And then at our last resource group meeting, we said that this was a one-time survey. And then after the project, we plan on putting it in a location that's identified by the people taking the survey to make it like a one-stop shop for the best practices resources on both sides of the state. And then at the bottom, we give some more feedback on like how we will follow up. We'll put it on our yearly agenda to review all of the resources, make sure there's not like new versions of reports and guidelines put up to update them, make sure all the links are working, and then maybe get some more feedback on like what's missing or what we can add to it for the next year. And then I put just a couple examples of like maybe what we could do for future implementation projects based on some of the findings. And then at the bottom, we as a group kind of need to decide how much we're asking for. I highlighted some examples of like how much it would cost to do that many book sets. And then like the cost of like one individual one.
Across the 6 counties that we support through this plan, what do you guys think that the return rate will be for the survey? That's the only thing I wouldn't want to shorten us, that we get more than 25 and then we don't have enough money to give them a gift.
There was discussion of, we weren't determining that each person that submitted a completed survey would receive the resource, were we? Or are we just doing a drawing or X amount? I guess that would have to be determined also after.
I guess I might say, like, do you guys think we have any other projects in the pipeline that are going to ask for a lot of money this year? Because right now we have quite a bit of funding that's not being utilized.
I
I
don't
guess
know
I
what
thought everyone was going to get one. Whoever filled it out was going to get one. That's why we asked for their address. Maybe
Oh, that's true. If they wanted to give the address, I mean, there's always an option that they don't want to
Yeah.
provide their contact information. Rhonda, as far as the Kansas side, I guess I would have you check, or someone check with maybe Emma or Amy. I mean, I don't know what their return rate is for surveys. I mean, we've had a lot of surveys going out just statewide. And we haven't had a huge response, so they may have a better idea of what, you know, Johnson, Wyandotte County providers
okay.
kind of reply to. Probably also depends on how we hit them, when we hit them, that kind of thing.
Chris, who would I go to find out? I mean, I guess I'd like to know what our reach is. So who would be able to give us those numbers? I don't need to know who, but how many licensed?
Oh, I can look that. So you want licensed programs in Johnson and Wyandotte, but just what, family childcare and childcare centers?
I guess everyone, right? Because we would be sending
So
it
you
to
want
everyone.
preschool and school age programs also?
I guess not school age, right?
So I'll do a search for childcare centers, preschools, Head Start, and family childcare.
Okay, that would be helpful. And then the counties over in Missouri, is that Katrina? No.
Yeah,
who
you
would
can
I
check
ask?
with Katrina. Yeah, she probably could pull from their database over there.
Okay.
I think at one of our previous meetings, we talked about some of our like consultants that have been on our meetings, like directly reaching out to their clients to fill it out.
Yep. That is true. We did discuss that.
Like Maddie, and I think she mentioned,
Mhm.
I don't really know how many they
Amy?
serve. Yeah, Amy.
I think you're gonna have to hit them in every which direction. I mean, you could send out a mass email or, yeah, we'll have to figure out how we can do that. We always send it out broadly and then narrow it down to the consultants that work with them, because we know that
Mm.
you've got to hit people multiple times before something starts to resonate with them.
Yeah. Shelley, you so patiently are waiting.
I just wanted to throw out there, so we have talked about a couple of things in terms of who gets the resource. For the purposes of the application and the budget, we don't know how many people are going to fill this out, but we do have a limited budget. And
Mhm.
so I think we need to estimate what we think that total budget that we want to ask for is going to be. And then we're going to have to say at the beginning, for example, the first 50 completers will get the DVD set. So, because if we say everyone, and let's say we were lucky enough to have 100 people fill it out, or even
Right.
60, we
Yeah.
wouldn't have enough in our budget to cover that. And so that's why Natalie put these two numbers together, was to give us an idea of, okay, what's in the early childhood sector budget? What have we used so far? What is realistic to ask for? If we got 50 to complete it, wouldn't that be super awesome? Isn't that kind of, I mean, in my head alone, that seems really outstanding if we got that many people to fill it out. So if we asked for a max of like $2,300 for 50 participants, then
Mhm.
that's realistic to me. And we could be clear in the application that it's the first 50 who complete it, which I also think motivates people to complete it.
Yep.
Faster.
I would agree with that. I would agree to ask for the amount of 2,300.
Okay.
And I mean, yeah, we can send this out broadly, or we can just leverage the relationships that we have with Childcare Where Kansas through the CCHC program, Childcare Hub, yeah. And Lisa's, Amy's. I mean, I guess if we just want to narrow it down.
Well, what do we risk by doing that? If we only send it to people that already have relationships with consultants, does that say we don't think the rest of you are valuable? Versus if we send it broadly and everybody gets it, then if nobody completes it, then we narrow down through our channels.
Yep.
It seems that might be a little bit more inclusive and encourage others to be involved. I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
I would
Yeah.
agree with you, Shelley, too, because then it makes me think, and Natalie, maybe there is a question on there to
Yeah.
ask, are you currently participating in a quality initiative project or something? Because I think we'd have two different groups then. We would hope that providers that are connected on either the Missouri or Kansas side in whatever project are aware of some of those resources, are utilizing those resources, but then it would be I would assume we're going to get a very different perspective from providers that aren't connected with projects. And if they aren't, then that to me is a higher targeted area that we need to focus on.
Yep, I agree. And Rich was saying the same thing. He would suggest doing both, send out broadly and then provide targeted follow-up. Yep, I agree too. Thanks for the numbers, Chris.
Yeah, yeah.
I think this application looks really strong. Good work, team.
Okay.
Thank you all. Thanks for that input. I think it was the next steps piece that we wanted to make sure we were clear on, because I know we as a group understand it, but we're trying to communicate this. I mean, as Rhonda's already shared in talking to Dr. Wade, we're trying to communicate this to people who have no experience or expertise in the early childhood sector. And so helping them see how our next steps align with what's currently going on in both states helps make this a lot more valuable and reach the threshold for funding, because as Rhonda already said, it's not a multi-sector application. So that already reduces, I think, 2 points for
Correct.
us to get, and the threshold is a score of 7 out of 10. We've already knocked 2 out. So we don't have a lot of wiggle room in there. We have to make sure we're clearly aligning with strategies and tactics, that our approach is clear, that it is multi-level. So Natalie already shared this. It's multi-level, and our next steps are clear, because that's where our points are going to make the difference.
Yep.
If we don't have any more feedback on that, can I show you what I did for the images on the survey?
Yeah.
And hopefully it works.
The one question I did have on the next steps, I think one of the sentences says that we will follow up with early childhood providers to maybe ask.
One second, let me open it again.
Okay, sorry. I didn't know what this meant. Okay, monitor. Okay, after completing this project and making resources available in the location identified from the survey results, the sector plans to follow up with ECE professionals to get feedback on how they use the resources and if having them in the selected.
I think that was like the house website.
Yes. My question, okay, I like the second part of it, but my question is, we're gonna get feedback on how they use the resources. Didn't we already do that in the survey? Am I just being picky?
No, it's a fair question. I don't think I've changed that wording since our last meeting.
I mean, I think getting feedback if the location is beneficial for accessing, but I don't think we need to know how they're using the resources, because we already asked that in the survey. We asked them if they're using it for policy, programming.
I guess we don't really need to ask them if they're using it, because we could look at click rates.
Yeah, did we talk about that? I didn't see that in there. So maybe if you could change that one question or that one sentence to say that
Did
as
I
a
delete
sector,
them?
we will monitor the click rates.
Oh, here.
Okay. I would maybe just take that sentence out.
Okay.
Anybody else disagree with me? Disagree? And then we'd love to see this. Thank you.
Take the whole sentence out here, or just the part about how to use it?
How to use it. Yep. Because then that goes into the quick rates. Yep. Just that part. So to follow up with ECE professionals
To
to gauge, to see if a selected location is beneficial. Determine, nice. Thanks, Rich. Nice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Of course, now my red cap locked out. Okay, well, I'll just show you this tool. In the introductory paragraph, I have a sentence about this being a key for the following resources that you're going to be reviewing in it. And it takes you to a link to this PDF file. And I've
Nice.
labeled them and put their number to help people follow a little better.
Nice. This looks really good.
So that'll be in a separate tab from the survey. It clicks out.
Awesome. I'm a visual person, so I love it.
Okay.
Great work.
I have to add one more question, I think, because I looked at it today and I forgot to put the one at the top about which counties they are responding from. So I'll do that, and probably in the next week I could send it to you guys to review, and then I could send it out to the group to make sure that all the logic works with the questions and the wording looks right and stuff like that.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I feel really good about it.
Yeah, there is an open response option, correct, Natalie? I think Rich had asked. Yeah. So given that we're gonna do this mass email to all providers in the six counties. Never can remember the Missouri ones, but why do I need to? I'm not a Missourian. But do we want to try to figure out a question to determine if they have been engaged in quality initiative work that would provide them with resources that maybe a program that has not been would not have access to those at the ready? I mean, is that needed information? I don't know.
The only thing that we have kind of similar on there is last meeting we talked about, like, where else do you get resource besides these online ones like we're providing? And then we listed like childcare aware consultants, the Family Conservancy, PALS trainers. So there's kind of some of that information might be collected.
Yeah, so if someone didn't mark any of those, that would tell me they weren't connected with any of those agencies or groups.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
So, Chris, I think that's an excellent question. I don't know that that is important to us from the PA plan perspective. However, this is for the purpose of the early childhood sector. And so if this advances the overall goal of getting providers connected to resources, I think that does meet a need. And so we could certainly ask that. And I think we could ask it from are you already participating? And if the answer is no, you get a question that says, would you be interested? And then if so, give us your name and contact information and we'll put you in contact with the right person. And then, again, if that's valuable to Child Care Aware, Family Conservancy, Missouri, and whatever it is, I hate that I say that all the time, that Lisa's working with, I think that helps us meet the Kansas City Healthy Lifestyles Collaborative goals of connecting And so I think it's a great idea. And if you guys are open, I mean, if you think it's important and be useful information, I don't know why we couldn't include it.
I think you're exactly right, Shelley, because then those consultants or the individual groups,
Yeah.
because we're always recruiting for folks. So then Amy, as she's recruiting for the Family Child Care Network, which I believe is a bi-state. And then, like you said, Lisa, or the Child Care Health Consultant Network, it's just another connector with folks. So we'll just have to determine. I mean, we have had those kind of questions, and I'm sure Natalie can come up with something. Sometimes it can be lengthy if you do a drop-down box and all that, but we can talk with the full group. Natalie, if you can draft something or reach out as
Okay.
needed, but
What term do you think, like, you said quality improved? Like
I don't
the
think they're
general-
going to, yeah, that's the thing, the terminology. And maybe it's just as simple as what programs or projects have you been engaged with, or I'd have to look back at some of our surveys. Because they're not gonna, quality initiatives are not gonna be an identifier for them.
Okay.
And that's why we sometimes use a drop-down box, have you been involved in, or do you, the links to quality, or go knapsack, or Child Care Health Consultant Network. And I only know the terms on the Kansas side, so. Because that kind of sparks, oh yeah, I've done that, I've done, whatever that is, so. My thoughts are not coming out. But I could look back at.
I think this specifically fits in what we said our next steps on that application were, to connect them to those programs to help them. So I don't think it's a bad addition. It's just like moving it to right now instead of next steps.
And, we might as well add it in there when we're gonna be sending out something instead of doing, taking the time to create that again. Do you want me to look for some language for that, Natalie?
Sure, that would be helpful.
I always forget the fourth county in Missouri. What's the fourth county that?
Cass?
Thank you. I always forget that one.
It's,
Jackson, Clay, Platte, and Cass.
it must be.
Okay. Does anyone have anything else?
No, this looks great. Thanks for all the work. It's awesome. I'm excited to send it out and get the results. Thanks, everybody. I think the last thing on the agenda we just have is to remind anybody, if you would like to join our implementation project, or implementation groups. We have one that is, thanks, Rich, over professional development, and the other one is around resources. And so Natalie's going to put up the next dates for those. They are also highlighted on the agenda. And we were such a small group today, but I would like to say, if you had any updates from your organization you wanted to share with our group today, we would definitely welcome that. I would say that our next meeting for resources implementation group is Friday, July 21st at 11 a.m. And then our Go Knapsack report review, which is going to be our data that we're reviewing, is Friday, July 28th at 11 a.m. And we always have our monthly meetings on the fourth Friday at 9 a.m. And we would also welcome anyone that would want to be our partner spotlight. It's a great opportunity that we can highlight the work that's going on in the early care and education field. And we'd love to have a partner spotlight. We haven't had one in a couple months. So if you have any suggestions or any ties to people or other organizations, we would love to have them come and speak about 10 to 15 minutes in the meeting. So for the last couple minutes we have, does anybody have any organization updates they would want to share with the team? With the group?
The last thing I'll say is, if you aren't already signed up, we invite you to participate in our next Kansas City Healthy Lifestyles Collaborative Quarterly Meeting, which is next Thursday, June 29th from 9 to 11. It will be a hybrid meeting. We invite people to attend in person. If you're attending in person, it's at the Kauffman Foundation Conference Center, or you can participate virtually. I'm thinking of you specifically, Richard. Natalie can put the registration information in the chat. We do ask for registration. There's no cost to register, but that's how we track whether you're coming in person, and we order food or make sure you have the link to the virtual participation. So we will have a healthy breakfast available at that meeting. The topic is access to healthy food. So we're going to have presenters from Mid-America Regional Council talking about Double Up Food Bucks. We'll have Children's Mercy talking about some of the programs that we have related to access to healthy food. And we have a couple of other invitations out. Rhonda, I'm not sure if you had a chance to talk to Jessica or not, but we would invite her to share information about what Harvesters is doing. We've invited Canby's Market. I haven't heard back from them yet. And we are sending invitations out to some of the local urban farms. There's a couple of unique ones. We thought they might be interested in sharing some information. So we have 2 speakers confirmed, and we hope to have a few additional ones. So invite you all to participate in that.
Great, thank you. Shelley, anybody else have any updates they want to share?
Shelley, which date was that on here? Was that the
Thursday, the 29th, a
20?
week from today.
Okay, I'm sure I have it on my calendar, but with you saying that there, I want to invite the chair of our Health and Wellness Coalition to join virtually.
Great. We love it.
That'd
Feel
be
free to
wonderful.
send the invitation to anyone you want. It's open to everyone.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks so much for your time today and your feedback. We really appreciate that as we move forward with these 2 implementation projects to present to the core group. Stay cool and enjoy the rest of June. Bye, everybody.